How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the weekly trading review for the week of October 27th. So this week I had 18 total trades, 16 winning trades, and 2 losing trades. Total P&L of $9.55 and 63 cents. And among that, the splits are as follows. We have swings, 9 wins and 1 losses, total profits of $9.06. Day trades, 5 wins and 1 loss, total profits of $4.63. And other, $46 of profits, 2 wins and 0 losses. Okay, so as always, we're going to start with what the market did, and then we'll get into the swing trades, the day trades, and then the current open positions that I have. You'll notice that I'm putting up the trading view chart right now. I've been modifying this for a while, so figured I'll just bring it up in this video and kind of lean on this since I have my OSB closed right now and I don't want to open it back up right now. So going to use the trading view charts over here, and you'll see the D1 on this side, the M5 on this side, which correspond, and then over here I have the SPY charts on the top, the SPY M5, and then any stock M5 over here. So when we do our day trades, we can compare and see how the stock was doing for those day trades. So that's what we got working with right now, but I'm going to put this in the back here and just bring up the SPY chart. Okay, so let's look at SPY this week. And we had a pretty big gap up following the other gap up on the 24th, and the market just kind of compressed and didn't really do that much for the rest of the week. On this gap up, the market was overextended, so we could expect some sort of pullback here, and we ended up getting one on the 30th to the 8 EMA. And there's been a lot of choppy price action. It's kind of gap, chop, moving up, moving down, not really doing a whole lot intraday. On the D1, we are still bullish, and you've noticed that this channel that I've drawn over here, obviously a rough channel. We got a couple of pokes on 1010 and kind of below here with that volatility, but this channel has mostly been preserved. And so when we got over here, I figured that the upside is probably going to be limited with this really big move, and we had pending news from earnings. So the market had to digest that move. But it is bullish, but kind of difficult to trade. You can see the action has been very choppy on this move up here. Just compresses, then a pop up, and then we kind of hold. We got pretty much most of the gains have been in a couple of days. Like we kind of got this back-to-back gain here that got preserved over a couple of days, and then a whole lot of nothing. This big move over here that happened over a couple of days, and then a whole lot of nothing. So very choppy action, and then we get some pops potentially over here. So difficult to trade, and then, just really trying to pick the best stocks and, not pushing yourself in a lot of these LPTE environments. So that's kind of been my focus over here. I'm going to bring up the swing trades. Okay, so couple of swing trades here, and I'm going to sort this by the close price. First swing trade that I had was GLW. And so we had this swing here on the 13th, and in that swing, I was in the October 31st calls, and I believe I had the 80 calls. I will double check this right now. Yep, the 80 calls here. And I got in this trade at 785 right over here, and then it was holding, and then we got a poke over here on the 24th, and then a pop up here on the 27th, and then an order out at 890. So that order got filled on the 27th, and then the stock actually had earnings the next day. So got out right before earnings, but that was a nice little win to start the week on GLW. And you can see that this stock, it was kind of flat technically here, but it did hold the the technicals here. It held the 8 and 15 EMAs, and it held this low from this candle. Couldn't quite get through it, and that provided a nice floor at around 83 bucks. So that was a nice win in GLW. Next win that I had here, or next trade that I had here, was on NVIDIA. So this was a very much longer term swing trade that I took. I got in over here, and then you can see how this channel is now. Well, it might be, it's kind of invalidated right now, but I got in over here as the stock. Stock was breaking through this horizontal resistance and then acting as support over here. So I got in on the 30th at 86.50 as a starter position on 15 shares. Stock was just kind of chopping around. It broke below the 8 and 15, but I could lean on the 100 SMA here, which lined up really well with the AVWAP E. The stock then found some support on the 24th, so I added 15 shares, so I had 30 shares at the same price at 186.50. Had a nice pop up over here, and it still held. And then I took profits around over here at 195, so I got out over here as the or at 194.50 for an $8 gain overall, as the stock was coming up and testing this resistance over here. And there was an NVIDIA news conference, so didn't exactly know what was going to happen. In this case, we had a really big pop up all the way up to 210, which was very strong. I probably would have gotten out at 200, honestly. That was my original target, but took gains at 190. 194.50, and that was a pretty nice win. But it was a much longer term play. I had to wait out pretty much a whole month for this stock to profit. But the nice thing is that I had plenty of time until earnings, and at a starter position, so you can kind of wiggle and jiggle, but not do a whole lot. So that was a nice win on NVIDIA, and kind of held it pretty well too with most of the market. There was this 10-10 day. I was waiting to see how that would do. I could have exited over here, but we're just waiting to see what would happen on the 8 EMA and if the market would start to break down or not. So if the market broke down, then I'll get out of the trade. If the stock held and moved up, then I had the nice latitude to stay. But if it did break down over here, you see that honestly on this 1022 day, it poked down over here, it made a new low, and I was just waiting to see what the stock would do in the afternoon. And then it bounced up and actually closed above the 50 SMA. So I was thinking, all right, hey, good, I can stay in this trade and I don't have to worry about, I don't have to get out yet because it's still technically valid. Okay. Next trade here was a time spread that we took on CNC and closed this one on the same day. So got in this time spread. I'm going to pull up the chart here. Okay, so got in this time spread at 156. And let me go to this chart right here. So you'll see a couple lines on these charts, and I will explain them in a little bit, but they're not super important right now. The main thing you have to focus on is just this chart. So we took the 3350 time spread. I took this at 1:56 p.m. for a total debit of 21 cents, and I took 25 contracts of that. And then with these time spreads, we put an order out for the same day. So I was trying to get out at like 28 cents, right? That'd be a nice 33% gain. Couldn't quite get it. So I ended up getting out around 25 to 26 cents. So about a 4.5 cent gain overall in the position. And I took that end of day at around 3:45. But yeah, I mean, pretty much. So took it kind of around here. Stock pulled back kind of around here, but it's just the IVs that are moving a whole bunch. So, if I can get out for like 20% on the same day, I'll take that win because it's a pretty risk-free trade, and doesn't really do a whole lot. Like you're pretty much just getting a nice gain and avoiding the risk of potentially losing on that trade overnight. Kind of a crazy chart here on CNC. You can see there's some resistance at the gap, so that's providing a ceiling. There's also this IPO, a VWAP coming into play over here. And on the M5 chart, I have a couple of lines here, so it's a mess because this gray line is the SMA 50. This other lighter gray line is the SMA 100. This blue and pink lines are the EMA 8 and 15 respectively on the D1 chart. This gray line over here is the VWAP, and then this dotted yellow line is the VWAP from the prior day, and this dotted orange line is the VWAP from 2 days ago. So quite a few lines here, but they gave me a sense of just I want to know the major D1 levels on the intraday chart, the VWAPs, and then these dotted lines here. This is the 10-day high. This is the prior day high. And if we're lower, then you would see the prior day's low and the 10-day low and so on. So on this, I can see here's a prior day low, and I can see if that's going to provide support or not, which it ended up doing so. All right, so that was CNC. I take it a pretty nice gain on that guy. Next trade here, 2 trades on GLW, and it ended up being 2 trades because it was a bit of a fat finger that I took over here. So announced earnings and then gap down, kind of filled in the gap pretty well over here, and then had some follow through buying the next day. So this was one that took from the Dave's chat room on Right Line Trading, got in over here with a strong move up, pulled back to the 8 EMA. So we took the November 21st $85 calls for $6.90, and then stock had a nice surge up over here. When it started to get extended, I saw this hammer here. I'm thinking, okay, this is probably a nice time to take some gains. So I meant to close this at 8.20, but instead I added at 8.20. So instead of taking a $1.30 profit, my average cost was $7.55, and this had gone against me. Now I didn't even realize that would happen until later in the day, when it was around 3 o'clock. So I got out over here at 7.60, so I basically took 5 cents on a double position, and then I just bid a little bit lower because I wanted to get back in at 6.90. So I got my fill kind of over here at 6.90, kind of end of day. You can see that it's testing this prior relative high, which is this dotted green line, and found some support around that area. So took it at 6.90 again. So this was basically a second swing trade. And I got out of this guy on the 30th at an order. We had an order out for $8.40, which just missed the profits. Over here got close, 8.20. And then on the surge up over here on the gap up early in the morning, got filled at 8.40. And that was that. So those were the 2 trades on GLW. Next trade was MRK. This was a time spread. So this is also in the Right Line room, but this is not one that they called out. This is actually one that I called out, and then the room ended up taking it, which was nice. But here's a setup on MRK. So the stock had exceeded earnings only about 13% of the time. The Ivy crush on this, I believe, was closer to 50%, but it was definitely over 40%. So on this MRK, we took the 87 calls. I took this at 3 p.m. and I got in for 40 cents. I had 20 contracts in for 40 cents. And I got out at 3:37 p.m., so about 37 minutes later at 42 cents. So total gain of 2 cents. I was trying to get in at 35 cents and then take 7 cents. So that would have given me about a 20% gain, but didn't quite get it. So took a much smaller profit intraday on MRK. And again, right, the M5 chart isn't as helpful because it's moving around, but really, the IV is going to be popping around on these time spreads, and that crush or not crush is what's going to move the stock over here. So that was a small little win on the time spread, but it was a win nonetheless. So that was MRK, and then final time spread here that we took this week was Guild. So again, you can see actually there's a theme with these healthcare stocks, but I should close this Guild as well. I don't know what the hell's going on with that guy. So Guild had earnings, looks like, after on 30th. So here's the candle on Guild on the 31st. So on Guild took this one at 12:30, and we took the 120 calls. And again, this one I think exceeded earnings 6.67% of the time. Ivy Crush again of over 40%. So took the 120 time spread for a 35-cent debit, and I got 16 contracts in there. I was trying to get 20, but I couldn't quite get 20, so I got 16 and got in for 35 cents. I wanted to get in for 32, but couldn't get the fill, so I got in immediately at 35. And then the Ivy Crush was kind of popping around on this stock quite a bit. And I got out. I was betting at 44 cents credit. Got up to around 42 cents credit, but wasn't. I was thinking, okay, it's 42 cents is to 20% gain, so I'll still take that. So got out at 42 cents. So took overall a 7-cent win, or a 20% gain on the position on 16 contracts, which was a nice win on the time spread. So those time spreads were kind of a pretty nice saver this week because market was not really doing anything, so it's hard to directional trades. The probabilities are reduced, so something like a time spread, which is non-directional, it sets up pretty well, especially in that last week where we got a whole bunch of earnings. I think a huge chunk of the S&P 500 companies are reporting that week. So lots of movement over there. All right. Other non-directional trade I took was Roblox, and this was a strangle that I had taken. Now I'm still learning how to do strangles, but after being in Dave's chat room for a while and seeing the criteria, just been on the lookout for stocks that are strangle criteria. So the first thing for the strangle is the stock has to make some sort of really big move, which gets it on our radar, right? So you can see Roblox post-earning, big break through the SMA, coming all the way down and in testing, this support right here. I put these high volume lines here. These are high volume lines that have above a 2R vol. You can customize this. I find that the lower you make it, it can be really messy, but some really high R volume lines can give some sense of some levels to focus on. So there was some support over here that the stock had hit. So a little bit of support there, and I took the 113, 114 strangle for $4. So the main thing with the price of these strangles or a straddle is that you want it to be less than the ATR of the stock. So look at the ATR of the stock on the day before earnings. It was 5.79. So if I buy a straddle, I want it to be less than $5.79. Now, if you can get it cheaper, that's even better. So I was like, all right, if I can get it for like $4, I'll be pretty happy with that, because that'll be a good price for the straddle. Now, because you're buying a at the money call and put, the time premium decay is pretty strong. So you want to wait. You don't want the stock to be compressing. The stock has to be moving as you take the straddle, because you want it to move and kind of snap back, either drop down really hard, continue moving, or snap back really hard to some level, and then you'll also do pretty well. So that was the other criteria in Roblox. You want it to be moving, and you want to have some room to some of these levels. So I took it at $4 end of day, and then an order out for $5, which was a 25% gain on the open. It gapped up, and in order to hit that $5 gain, it needed to move up or down about $4. So kind closed at around, you see, 112, 113-ish. So it needed to move to about 117 or about 109, and that would give me my target. Now, since it hit a massive ATR candle range, right? So look at this high. This high to low is from 126 to 112. So that's a $14 range, right? So it's like, for it to move $5 is not too hard because it's moved so much. So gapped up, and you can see it hit that VWAP from the prior day, and that acted as some support. So in the morning, actually, I'd moved my target up from $5 to $5.60. I was trying to get out for $6 on this opening candle, but I couldn't get a fill. The spreads were too wide on the opening candle, so I got out for about $5.09, which was still better than my original target. So it took about 27% on that strangle, but that was a nice one. That was a good win. And you don't take too many of them, but still learning how to take these guys. But hopefully that setup made sense. Again, you want a stock that's made a big move on the D1 on some volume. You want the price of the straddle to be less than the 20-day ATR of the stock. I like to use the ATR before the big move so it doesn't get as inflated. So using that, and you want the stock not to be flat intraday when you take it. You want to have some movement intraday as well. And the final part is you want to just see the TAs here. So knowing that this was the prior day VWAP and this could be some resistance, and it started to fade, I got out. So I figured that any pop up or down, I'm just going to take profits and move on. I'm not going to try to get cute with it, which ended up being the right move because this stock gapped down and pretty much did nothing. So that would have completely died had I taken it on that day. Okay, so that was Roblox, and then I'm going to go over two other trades that were, I think, technically day trades, but I classify them as swing trades because they're not part of my day trade challenge or my day trade tag. So the first trade I took as a day trade was CSIQ. Or sorry, not CSIQ. CMG. So big drop down on earnings. This is a bullish gap reversal trade that I took. So I took the November 7th $30 calls for $3.60 at 11:15 a.m. So you can see here's 11:15 a.m. when the stock broke it through the high of the day and broke through the 8 EMA from the prior day here. So took it here, and you can see that the stock at the time was about 33.40. So my intrinsic is really super high for this. I'm only paying 20 cents a premium on the stock, which is really, really nice. So that was a nice trade, and it kind of pushed up over here. I was looking for a move to the prior day VWAP, which can often be a level of resistance. But the stock kind of stalled over here at $34. So I figured that there is probably some OI over here at $34 that was stalling this out. So I got out of the trade at $3.95. So I took a 35-cent gain. So just about a 10% gain on that position. And, that was a nice little gain. So that was the CMG day trade. And also, if I put the SPY up over here, we can take a look at this in more detail. You can just see what the SPY was doing. It's actually not as important for CMG in my opinion because the stock has so much volume, it's really going to be doing its own thing. But I took it over here. You can see here's a SPY, and then market moved down, which I liked. And then as the market surged up, you can see how the stock didn't really do a whole lot. So got out of the trade there. But you all can see when I took it as well on my LRSI multi-time frame, which I'm actually going to, yes, I still have to work on this indicator. It's not quite right. The D1's a little off. But the main thing is you can see that it's coming up in the 15, bouncing off the VWAP. There's some nice volume on these candles, orderly price action off these candles, and there's some bullish momentum on the trade over here when I took it. So that was CMG. The other trade I took was CSIQ. And took this trade on the 31st. So here's the D1 setup on CSIQ. I'm going to hide these high volume lines for the moment, just clean up the chart. But as you can see, choppy stock, but it made a pretty nice move over here on a ton of volume. So I'm going to put this chart up over here, and then we'll look at the intraday chart in more detail. Oh, I'm on, I got to go on the 31st. I was going to say that chart did not look right to me. Okay, so first clue on the 31st, right? You can see how this level right here at 1861, we broke through that. So that's a key level. And the stock had made a really nice move. Look at this organized price action kind of move here, right? Really nice move on this price action. While the market is, kind of pulled back down and then, went back up over here. It's kind of gap down, kind of flat. So I get in on this stock right over here at 1110. And on CSIQ, I take let me actually see. I can combine these trades here. So this was also a bit of a fat finger, because I just put the wrong input in here. But so on CSIQ, I got in here. So I got a pretty aggressive anticipatory entry here when I got to saw this tail off the 8 EMA because this trend is so strong. So I figured any dip is probably going to be gobbled up to the 8 EMA. So I got CSIQ. I took the November 7th 18 calls for 270. And then when it popped down here and then it got gobbled back up, I meant to add to the trade at 240 because I liked this price action here. I like to show strength from buyers. So I meant to add at 240, but I accidentally sold at 240. So it's down 30 bucks on the trade, which kind of pissed me off. So I was like, all right, fine, whatever. So I'm going to get back in the trade. So I got back in the trade. I took the November 21st 18 calls at 11.18. So I took that for $3.34. Not as liquid. Stock was moving up. And I took the longer ones because I was like, all right, well, I mean, well, maybe I'll give myself some more time if I'm going to keep getting in on this guy. So took it here, and you can see that the market, as it pretty much sold off pretty hard, CSIQ flat the entire time. And then as soon as the market had a little bounce, to stage another bounce here, staged another bounce here, and then this stock was pushing up higher. And I actually got out on this 133 candle as it poked up higher. I thought, all right, market's kind of testing the low of the day. This is a pretty strong move. CSIQ is pushing back up here, but it's kind of struggling at this level. So I'm going to get out here. So I got out at 350. So it took 16 cents per contract. So overall, a small loss, 14-cent loss overall, just because of that fat finger mistake. But had I added or held and got out of the trade, probably would have been maybe a 15% gain on a 2x position would have been pretty nice. So that was CSIQ. But you can see again, I'm really trying to get these right. Even on when I get the market wrong in these days, if you get these really strong stocks and you enter well, right, you enter kind of close to the EMAs, you enter close to VWAP here, you have some room to work with, at least to the high of the day or break through the high of the day. You can do pretty well. And I was leading on this strong price action. That's how I felt comfortable staying in this position and holding through this move because we'd preserved so many of these gains. And I knew that this is pretty much all market related. So if the market found support on any sort of bounce, I could get out of this trade for a nice profit. And even in this action over here, right, we pushed up higher on some of this move and able to get out for a nice win on CSIQ. Okay, so those were the swing trades. I'm going to pull up the day trades now, and let's get over them. Okay, so first day trade was SMR. You can see obviously on the D1, this is a pretty choppy stock. And we are going to pull this up over here as well. All right, so here's the setup on SMR. Stock had a break through the EMAs here. So these are the D1 levels, remember. 8 EMA, pink is the 15. This gray is the 100 SMA, and this darker gray is the 50 SMA. So we broke through all these levels, and then we had this nice surge up on some pretty decent volume. And this is a nice leg of price action to lean on. So stock pulled back over here, kind of popped up, holding this 8 and 15 EMA, and then we got a nice pop up over here at 11.50. So I took this trade. I bet a little bit lower at 43.30. So I got filled at 43.30, or sorry, I got in at 43.40. My bad. And I was looking for 50 cents on this trade. I got 2 shares at 43.40, so moved up higher, and then I got filled right around here, 43.90. Got 50 cents on the trade, and that was that. So that's a nice little win to start off the week. Other trade I took over here, second day trade, was PLTR. So took this trade on the 29th. Stock had a breakout through this compression as well as this high as it rallied into the earnings number. So going to go now into the M5 chart on PLTR on the 29th. You can see that, again, we had a strong move up on volume, and then it did kind of die a little bit here. I got in right over here. I got in at 196.85 as we got this hammer off the 8 EMA. Again, a bit of an anticipatory entry as I was leading on the strength of this candle, and I expected that this stock could at least rally up to 200, where I figured that there would be some good, maybe some option OI levels, some call walls kind of stuff here that could it might stall out over there at the day. So that was kind of my target in my head, and I figured I could probably get, I mean, if a market was cooperating, I could get up to $2 to $3 on that guy. If it wasn't cooperating, maybe I could get $1.50 or so. So market's moving down. Stock is kind of flat, not really doing anything over here. So I end up scratching out of the trade at 11:50 a.m. Right when I see this candle, it tries to get back up, but doesn't quite get back up over here. So I end up scratching out of the trade on this candle right here, as the market has poken through the low of the day. Stock, it's looking okay. It's not super strong. I probably should add the relative strength indicator. So let me add that in here. Yeah, so you can see that the relative strength, it was looking good, and it's starting to lose that relative strength, and it had to pull back to VWAP over here. Oh, guess it didn't work. Yeah, but had to pull back to VWAP over here, and then off VWAP, right? You get some momentum coming up over here. So I like this entry at 196. And you could ride that all the way up to the high of the day. So, but there's a good, $2 in this guy that you can take off that VWAP move. So that's a pretty nice later day trade in PLTR. I realized what I did wrong here. There we go. Okay, so next trade that I took was Oracle. So here's Oracle on the D1 after this strong move lower. It's kind of been in this bearish channel, and it poked through the 50-day SMA here. So if I go to Oracle on this M5 chart, and get it on the 29th. Okay. So, again, we got the strong leg lower, pull back to VWAP, and then we got this nice VWAP rejection at the 11 o'clock bar. So, took it right around here. I got in Oracle short at 272.75. And I was looking for just a move to the low of the day, maybe a poke through on Oracle. You see the market was below VWAP. It was testing the low of the day. It did have a little bit of bearishness towards it. So figured that was in the cards. The stock had reversed up and broke through this long red candle. So when it started to break through and close over here, I took the loss in the trade at 275.42. So got out of that trade because I figured that it had probably reacted to this support level over here, which was, I mean, if I draw that up on this chart, you can see how we got pretty close to that level. Just quite got close to it. And so I was pretty close to that D1 little resistance. So, maybe that's probably something to avoid in the next chart. But, I figured not the worst trade. I don't think it just panned out. And it had a pretty hard drop. So got a good entry. I think I had a decent pick. I was wary of this support. So when it started to go against me, I had a quick leash and I took the trade off. All right, so I already talked about CMG here on that quote-unquote swing trade. I will talk about this as a very quick day trade that I took intraday, which I took right here. So stock had gapped down and was kind of grinding higher early in the morning. And usually these stocks will pull back and test that M58 EMA that's coming down from the prior day's level. So I took it over here at 32.85. I took 2 shares, and I was targeting this level, which was around 33.50. So I was trying to see if I could get maybe 50 cents a share on that, and it got pretty close. You can see it got high. I was targeted to get 33.35. I got to 33.31, so just missed. So I got out over here at 33.20 for a total gain of 35 cents per share. And then I'd wait. I was waiting for the pullback to VWAP, and then when the stock made this strong move up over here, that's when I got back into the trade. And that's when I took in the calls, and I took profits in the calls later. So CMG had set up for me twice, and that was a pretty nice trade. Next one I took was on Roku. And I took this one on the 30th. So this was a bit of a tricky one because Roku was coming into earnings. But it had this very strong leg here. And I'm going to pull up get this chart up over here so we can see that comparison to Roku and SPY. Okay, so SPY, look at this gap down, doing absolutely nothing, completely garbage day, super tight range, just some awful stuff over here on SPY. So Roku is kind of looking strong here, and I take it, I think right at 11.20 as it pops off over here off this 8 EMA. Figure that it can push up a little bit higher. Market pulls down a little bit, tests the prior day low. Roku tests that low, but holds up pretty well relative to the market, and then it moves up higher. And I take it off at 82.82. So I got in at 102.82. So I got in at 102.22 over here, and then I got out at 102.82 over here because it popped up, and I was like, all right, well, market's pretty dead. This stock's pretty dead. I'm in a couple of trades, so I don't want to be overstaying my, managing a whole bunch of trades here. I'm just gonna get out when I have the nice profits and move on. So took a nice 60 cents on Roku. And the last trade I took for the week was INSM. And this was actually my biggest day trade winner because I added to a winning trade. So here's a daily chart for this guy. Obviously, you can see very big, strong earnings reaction. Looks like it had a negative surprise, but a pretty positive revenue surprise here of about 23%. So popped up, really, really strong price action. And again, right, strong price action, waiting for a pullback. got down over here, testing the VWAP. So when it started to hammer up on this VWAP here, that's when I got into the trade. So I bid lower. I got in at 85.50, which is again an anticipatory entry. Stock then popped up, was pushing up a little bit higher, and on this pop up over here, when it broke this compression, this is a really nice entry point on the stock. So I added to the trade at 87.70, 87.50, which is probably could have honestly gotten at 86 or $87 or even 86.50. It looks like, but got in at 87.50. So now my average price was 186.50 at 2 shares. And my target was about 189. So just kind of testing it back to the high of the day. So stock pulled back over here a little bit and then pushed up a little bit higher. And then on this candle over here at 12.20, got filled at 189. Excuse me. So it's a $2.50 gain per contract on 2x. So that was a pretty nice gain. So that's a nice example of me adding to a winner. And seeing how the stock was really just ignoring the market for a good chunk of the day over here. So those were all the day trades for the day. All right. So those are the trades for the week. Hope you guys found this helpful, and let me know how you feel about the layout or some of the stuff. But I may use this moving forward because I think I can sort of more easily toggle the day trade stuff over here. There's just a couple little changes quality of life wise where it makes it easier for me to go back in the charts and compare things. You can see how all these arrows kind of sync up over here, which is nice to see. So that is it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will catch you all in the next video.